What widely accepted belief is actually proven to be wrong? Hello, everyone! What would you like to see in the video? And have fun watching. Story 1: that polygraphs tell the truth. A decent amount of society believe if you fail a polygraph, you're guilty, lying. Source: took an employment polygraph, wasn't lying, still was told I was. Story 2: a lot of people still believe that if a human touches a baby bird, the mother will smell human on it and reject it. I believed that one well into my 20s. Story 3: learning styles. Research shows you have a preference for gaining knowledge in a certain way, but research shows that there is a statistically insignificant difference when receiving new knowledge based in your preference or in another method. It has nearly zero bearing on learning outcomes. Story 4: that polygraphs/lie detectors actually work in any objective fashion. Particularly in fiction and reality TV, they're depicted as infallible. But just like other forms of supposedly scientific proof, such as handwriting analysis, they're more speculative than we were told. Polygraph tests are basically junk science masquerading as a law enforcement tool. There's no doubt that measurable changes happen when people lie, but there are also many ways of training yourself to pass lie detector tests by controlling your own physiology. This is why using a polygraph is as bad as dunking putative witches in a pond. Story 5: that kids get hyper from too much sugar. No matter how scientific a parent's background might be, they mostly won't accept that it's all in their head. Any crutch when it comes to complaining about how hard parenting is. Story 6 depends on your definition of widely, but almost everyone who went through the July 2023 DDoS of Archive of Our Own believes it was a Bitcoin ransomware scheme of 4chans. Turns out it's way weirder than that. The attack was done by Anonymous Sudan, who are neither 4chan nor Sudanese. They're instead a Russian group pretending to be hardcore Muslim extremists and pick on any website they can try to justify as a religiously motivated attack. The goal is to drive up hatred against Muslims, which is fucking weird that state-sponsored Russian agents went after fanfic so hard it got added to their warning page on Cloudflare. Story 7: throwing a plugged-in appliance in a bathtub will kill you. It won't. Even if we ignore the breaker that would instantly pop, electricity doesn't work like that. You might feel a slight tingling near the appliance in the water, but it's not a cartoon. The wiring in the appliance is still way less resistance than the water. The majority of the electricity will still be going through it. Good luck ever explaining this to anyone. I literally took a cup of water, put two ends of a live 110-volt circuit in the water, then put my finger in the cup. And the people I was showing this to still didn't trust me, lol. It's just, some narratives are forever stronger than reality. Story 8: that everyone requires 1,0,0,0,0 steps per day. This was a marketing technique in Japan in 1960, for which the symbol of 1,0,0,0,0 looks like a running man. On average, we require 4,000, 8,000, depending on how active you are. However, getting 10K steps in all we always beneficial. Haha. Story 9: emotions are not actually illogical, just a different logic than reality around us sometimes, simpler. We use more than 10% of our brain. Politicians are not evil. They actually try for the most part, but some of them are blinded by greed and block progress. UBI was actually on the table in America around 1970. Studies that were another 100 years old, and are to this date the only one that show negative sides to UBI, dissuaded the president at the time. Aging is curable, and we will probably do it within the decade. And it's not worth it for the elites to monopolize it. Would lead to them getting massacred. AI will change everything and replace every job. Story 10. I think the gambler's fallacy is still a widely held belief by people. For example, if a player experiences a series of lost bets, they will erroneously assume that is evidence that they are due for a win in the near future. So it is the incorrect idea that random outcomes in the past will influence random outcomes in the future. Story 11. Going out into the cold causes you to get a cold. Dumb cartoons have made people believe you can catch a cold from the rain or cold weather. I dated a girl in high school that insisted she always caught a cold if she went outside with her hair wet. LMAO. Story 12. This might be more US-based, but there are always people saying that if you're riding your bike in the street, you should go against traffic, which is just fucking dangerous. Story 13. That a lit cigarette or cigar can ignite gasoline. Gasoline needs spark or an open flame to combust. You can drop a lit cigarette in a bucket of gasoline, and it will not ignite. The gas will literally put the cigarette out. The reason gas pumps say no smoking is because the act of sparking a lighter or lighting the cigarette using an open flame could have a chance of combusting the fuel. Story 14. Carbohydrates are bad. False. Carbohydrates are extremely important for your body's functions. 60 to 80% of the carbs you consume are used by the brain to fuel its activity. A part of it is used to build up your glycogen stores, which are basically the muscle matrix, and the rest are used for energy. Sugar is one of the best sources of carbs for the body. They are simple carbs that are so easy to digest that the body can start digesting before they even reach the stomach. You've probably seen videos of birds and squirrels passed out before death that are being fed sugar water. It quite literally gives them enough brain and physical energy to revive them and help them survive. Even diabetics eat sugar. They just need to account for how much they eat, so they can administer the proper amount of insulin to dissolve it. Edit. It is widely believed that sugar was the primary drive in human and ape evolution once they discovered sugarcane and switched from roots and meat to carbohydrate diets that cause increase in brain activity and over the centuries stimulated brain evolution. Story 15. That having babies, being pregnant, draws the calcium out the mother's teeth. So many people believe this one. There are several other true factors that can contribute to shit teeth after childbirth. Story 16. The concept of alpha males in a group. The person that came up with that theory later realized they were actually observing family groups and that alphas did not exist. But no one would listen because they thought it sounded cool. Story 17. I've heard during my education up to high school and from people that are into biology but not really into biology, a lot of them. Here are just two of them, one for plants and one for animals. Vacuole is just a water balloon, like structure filled with only water or acid. Well, sure, you'll find their water like almost everywhere in a cell, but most of plants treat them like an attic. If it has something it does not need, at the moment or at all, it will just dump it there. Pheromones make people feel attracted to each other, so adding them to perfumes, etc. might make you seem more attractive, while other animals have them and can use to find a mate even kilometers away. Mostly insects, and maybe they played a role for humans some millions years ago. Right now, there's only one functioning gene coding a peptide that might open a sodium channel leading to a nerve impulse, after a cascade of reactions, that would make brain react to it. The thing is, we don't have this other channel in our cell membranes, so even if something is produced, it yields no results. However, one thing fun about pheromones with other animals is that they're just organic compounds. So for one organism, it's a pheromone, and for some other, it serves different purpose. So next time you eat a truffle, enjoy a thought that at some point in the past, a pig was really horny for it. Story 18. That HIV is a death sentence. We now have very good treatment for HIV. You can live and have sex with HIV nowadays without infecting others as long as you're getting the right treatment. HIV-positive women can even have children without giving the virus to the baby. Story 19. The thing about eating spiders in your sleep was never true. It was never believed to be true until it was posted as an example of the sort of story people might believe without scrutiny. Story 20. My favorite. You need to let anger out in a healthy way, or it will come out in unhealthy ways. The premise is based more or less on the notion that anger and tension builds like the pressure inside a balloon. So you need to punch a pillow or do something else to let the pressure out, or it'll release on its own whether you like it or not. And there's some logic to this. Relieving tension and anger allows you to think more clearly about what's in front of you. People feeling tense or angry tend to make rash decisions. But all that aggression therapy horseshit actually makes the situation worse. Doing things like smashing appliances with a sledgehammer is really fun. And that's the problem. It wires your brain to think, get angry, fun things happen, i.e., it sets up a feedback loop that makes you more prone to anger rather than less prone to it. Story 21. Alpha male, females. Dude went and studied wolves, claimed the alphas ruled the pack. He then went back and did more research, and turns out the alphas of the pack were actually the parents of the pack. Douchebags can claim to be alphas, but it's only true if they bumped uglies and made offspring. Story 22. That your brain doesn't fully develop until 25. Redditors love this one. That means that for some people, changes in the prefrontal cortex really might plateau around 25, but not for everyone. And the prefrontal cortex is just one area of the brain. Researchers homed in on it because it's a major player in coordinating higher thought. But other parts of the brain are also required for a behavior as complex as decision-making. The temporal lobe helps process others' speech and language, so you can understand what's going on, while the occipital lobe allows you to watch for social cues. According to a 2016 Neuron paper by Harvard psychologist Leah Somerville, the structure of these and other brain areas changes at different rates throughout our lifespan, growing and shrinking. In fact, structural changes in the brain continue far past people's 20s. One especially large study showed that for several brain regions, structural growth curves had not plateaued even by the age of 30, the oldest age in their sample, she wrote. Other work focused on structural brain measures through adulthood show progressive volumetric changes from ages 15-90 that never level off, and instead changed constantly throughout the adult phase of life. To complicate things further, there's a huge amount of variability between individual brains. Just as you might stop growing taller at 23 or 17, or, if you're like me, 12, the age that corresponds with brain plateaus can differ greatly from person to person. In one study, participants ranged from 7 to 30 years old, and researchers tried to predict each person's brain age by mapping the connections in each person's brain. Their age predictions accounted for about 55% of the variance among the participants, but far from all of it. Some 8-year-old brains exhibited a greater maturation index than some 25-year-old brains, Somerville wrote in her Neuron review. Some of those differences might be random genetic variation, but people's behavior and lived experience contribute as well. Childhood experiences, epigenetics, substance use, genetics related to anxiety, psychosis, and ADHD, all that affects brain development as well, said Sarah Mallard Wakefield, a forensic psychiatrist. Story 23. That the world needs your contribution. It really doesn't. I'm sorry, but the world doesn't need another singer, another photographer, another artist. You know what I mean? By all means, enjoy those things, but don't think that the world needs it. Story 24. Testosterone makes you roid rage. Complete untruth. Testosterone actually levels you out. When my tea production went away, I thought I was losing my mind. I would get blindingly angry at the littlest things. Driving to work was rage-inducing. Bonus? I lost a ton of weight. Once we figured things out and I started HRT, I went back to normal. Story 25. It turns out it's not just space and time that is relative, but also the energy densities of the inherent universe. You see, gravity isn't what people think. Gravity is the displacement of the energy dimension. If time gets its own dimension, then so does energy. Mass displaces this energy field like a boulder in a stream. What happens? The water hits the rock and is repelled like eddies around the boulder in the stream, except this is in space, so the stream or space-time energy is hitting from every angle and is being repelled back on itself, forming a gradient back into space in equal proportion to the mass energy volume that the region of space that the mass now occupies. This is the curvature of space-time and energy, which describes the trajectory objects should take through space to minimize the energy expenditure. Not only that, but the space-time energy hits the mass, and the mass repels it doing work. This is energy converted to the electromagnetic field, which is projected the way Coulomb's law states, which actually extends space. Story 26. Anything to do with weight loss. If adjusted for a calorie-controlled routine, no diet outperforms any other. All these fad diets are just marketing schemes for the gullible. Weight loss is simple. Eat in a calorie deficit for a really long time. If you don't want to eat less, then you have to exercise more. Combine the two for optimal results. If you have specific fitness goals, then things get more complicated. Weight loss by itself is incredibly easy, though. You've just got to stick to it every single day. A couple cheat meals a week doesn't hurt anyone, though. Just don't let that cheat meal be like 6,000 calories, or you'll mess up your whole week. Story 27. That personality tests are completely accurate and can tell you who you are as a person, and even give you an identity. I'm a therapist. I utilize the Myers-Briggs as a fun tool to help clients maybe learn a little something about themselves. But the amount of people, professional and otherwise, who make it their entire identity are going way overboard and taking it way too seriously. For a while, everyone even had their personality type on their dating profiles, and were so happy to brag when they got a rare type, like a dang Pokemon or something, LOL. Story 28. Sometimes the things that may or may not be true are the things a man needs to believe in the most. That people are basically good. That honor, courage, and virtue mean everything. That power and money and power mean nothing. That good always triumphs over evil. And I want you to remember this. That love, true love, never dies. Remember that, boy. Remember that. Doesn't matter if it is true or not, A man should believe in those things, because those are the things worth believing in. Secondhand Lions. Story 29. Astronomer here. People insist that a lot of things happen during a full moon, such as crime and hospital visits. This is, however, a myth, with no evidence that either change much. It's more just two things. People are biased to remember things when there is a full moon in the sky, and often a moon a day or two from full looks like a full moon, expanding the range in confirmation bias. People always rush in when I say this to share anecdotes about their own hospitals, but the data still doesn't bear it out. Story 30. That blockchain, crypto technology has any legit potential to improve upon the existing finance investing systems we already have in place. We're 15 years into hearing about crypto and all the things it promised to change about the world, and none of them have come true. Instead, we have an opaque, fraud-filled ecosystem that consists primarily of market manipulation and deception. All people care about is num3rg0 up, and not whether or not the way that number goes up is legal and legit. These digital dingleberries, Bitcoin, Ethereum, Doge, or whatever, they're all the same. They're just numbers in a database that some people pretend have great value and promise their value will only increase. But there's absolutely no rational explanation for why that would happen. What makes number go up right now are a small group of exchanges who operate outside of any regulatory oversight, mostly with fake monopoly money, called stablecoins, which are anything but stable. The sooner the world recognizes this Ponzi scheme, the better off everybody will be. I may get downvoted for this, but what won't happen is nobody is going to provide evidence this argument in wrong. Even the principals behind Reddit have bought into the scam and hold a bunch of Bitcoin they think will go up in the future, despite there not being any legit reason why anybody should care about crypto in the real world. In fact, the standard pro-crypto arguments are so tired and invalid. We've compiled a list of all 29 of them and why they're false. Story 31. Shellfish allergy is not caused by iodine. It is caused by an enzyme in shell-producing animals, including insects, and even brine shrimp in tide pools, that in turn can produce an allergic reaction if you touch and/or eat them. Stomach ulcers are caused by a bacteria, a fairly recent medical discovery that upended decades of medical assumptions that it's primarily caused by stomach acids or stress, etc. Both of these things are surprisingly still not as well known as you'd expect within medical communities, even experts in particularly relevant fields, because there's so much literature and research that comes out every month and year. Story 32. That sugar induces a sugar high in children or really anyone else. Kids are unpredictable in general. If you have a group of children, they are going to be crazy. Give that group of children cupcakes, they are going to be even more excited because they are eating cupcakes, and that's cool. Most often, hyperactivity in children results in poor sleep, so this is also part of the self-perpetuating myth.